Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, it is my distinct honor to introduce to you our president of the AHPBA for this year of 2022-2023. This is Maria Bernadette Magella Doyle, a little bit of a mouthful. To introduce such an incredible and accomplished surgeon is truly an intimidating task, made even more difficult by the fact that she is an all-round great person. She is as fun and as smart as she appears. And while I say this in front of many past presidents, I do say that I don't think there's anyone who is any more deserving than this honor than Magella Doyle. So let's start with the facts. We can start with her public biography. And it's really apparent that Magella is by all accounts an incredibly accomplished surgeon. She's a transplant HPB surgeon and professor of surgery at Washington University in St. Louis. Many of you are also aware that she's a longtime director of the Transplant Fellowship Program, having trained numerous fellows over the years. This past year has been a busy one for Magella. In addition to her usual presidential duties, she was named the Mid-America Transplant and Department of Surgery Endowed Chair in Abdominal Transplantation, also a mouthful, and also inducted as an honorary member of the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland. She is known as a technically exceptionally gifted surgeon, and I reflected on that for a few minutes to know exactly how good she has to be to have that kind of reputation so widely known and spread. It will come as no surprise to anyone who's had even the briefest of conversations that Dr. Doyle hails from the Emerald Isle of Ireland. Magella was born in Cork and raised in Bray in County Wicklow, just south of Dublin, for those of you who aren't familiar with your Irish geography. She grew up with a love of horses and became an accomplished champion show jumper. After a stellar career with numerous victories, both at the individual and team level, Magella apparently had to choose between becoming a professional show jumper and medicine. I think we all know how that went, and I think we're all the better for it. Magella attended medical school at the Royal College of Surgeons in Dublin, Ireland. She's seen here on the bottom left on graduation day, I think with your grandmother. And she continued on to pursue general surgery training there at the Royal College. It is there that she caught the attention of Jerry McEntee, a well-known and famous HPB and transplant surgeon at the Mater Hospital. Jerry himself had done fellowship training in a variety of places, including here in the United States. It was one of the first fellows of my former colleague, David Nagorny. David used to tell me that Jerry was a semi-professional rugby player while he was doing his fellowship and would frequently ask David for permission to fly off on the weekend instead of covering call to play rugby. It was Jerry who introduced Majella to Will Chapman. And little did I think Jerry understood that he was creating truly one of the most dynamic duos in American transplant surgery. And as they say, the rest is history. At the end of her transplant fellowship, Will and Tim Eberlein refused to let Majella return to Ireland, and she was recruited on to faculty at Washington University. But before we leave this, I just want to bring into account the glare here that Majella is giving somebody. Now, that is a very serious case of what I'm told is side eye. I don't know who she's glaring at. I don't know what they did, but if you know Majella, they probably got what was coming to them. She did, while she worked very, very hard, it does appear from the photographic evidence that she was at least in near fun during that time. But when we go back to look at her medical school yearbook, you can see just what she meant to her classmates. This probably not her best photo, but it's out there. But just to say, as a class rep and mom, Madge, as she was known, could be a dependable friend. She's destined for fame and prosperity, and they hoped that Majella would fulfill all of her dreams, and I think today was hopefully one of those dreams. You can read the rest of it about drinking. Anyways. So those are the so-called facts of Majella Doyle, but let's dig a little deeper. As they say in this, Majella's favorite things. Majella loves a good cup of coffee, an outstanding Cabernet, a skinny margarita always. Apparently a big fan of romantic comedies. There's apparently no other type of movie. As a big fan of the beach. She's continued her athletic streak with interests in skiing, golf, tennis, and yoga. But if there's one thing that truly makes Majella's face light up, it's her family. The Doyle-Roth family, actually, I'm not sure if it's the Roth-Doyle or Doyle-Roth, but sorry, Bob, today it's the Doyle-Roth family. Bob and Majella met in 2013, and I'm sure to everyone's surprise, Majella was apparently late to their first date because she was caught in the operating room. I'm sure no one in this room has ever had that experience. This was clearly a bit of foreshadowing of what life would be like as a surgeon. Bob and Majella were married in 2014, and the members of the Doyle-Roth family include Ryan, who's a professional hockey player drafted by the New Jersey Devils, and currently playing hockey at the University of Windsor in Canada, which happens to be the alma mater of both of my parents. Amanda is a junior at Southern Methodist University studying sciences and pre-med. And then there's the guy in the bottom left corner, Rory. Now, no one lights up Majella's face more than Rory. Little known fact for those of you who've not been part of it, Rory is actually an ex officio member of the officers of the AHPBA. He has made numerous appearances on Zoom calls and is actually really, really a leader in growing. He's especially good at calming Rohan down because people might think that Rohan gets excited by things every once in a while. And he's really good at translating Mariano's Spanglish. Now, so if we really want to know the details of Majella, we should really ask the person who knows her best. And I have to say that Rory nailed it in every sense of the word. First, he's clearly been taught to be polite and a gentleman and to underestimate the age of adults. But seriously, Majella tends a bit of a stretch. He clearly understands that mom works hard and that she fixes livers for a living, which is very accurate. She loves kale salad and her favorite drink is wine. Like all parents, apparently bribery is a core of Majella's parenting style because a slight reluctance to eat salmon cakes gets you a trip to the toy store. But Rory, thank you very much for sharing that with us. It is truly the best way to describe your mom. Thank you for that. Now, if you spent time with Magella, you have to come to a good understanding of this term, gobshite, as it comes up frequently. I'm told it can be used as a noun or an adjective. It is defined, gob being mouth and shite being what it is. It's someone who's crazy, stupid, like speaks endlessly. And examples of this word can be used. I got quotes from, for instance, Bill Jarnigan, which said, as the Magella and Bill and other members were trying to ride a cab through Mumbai to the AHPBA, I believe the quote was, "This effing gobshite is gonna kill us." Now, I'm told it can have a playful or even endearing connotation, but I've yet to see it used in that fashion. Now, I also went to find what other quaint little Irish sayings that Magella might have, and we got a long list, but there was one that said, "The hair on his back is longer than the hair on his chin." And the person who sent that to me, I said, "Well, that's great. What does it mean?" He's like, "I don't know, but can you ask her?" We're hoping it's not an actual physical description of somebody, but we did entertain that possibility. Magella has been a tireless contributor and leader in this association for a very long time. I really got the fortunate ability to get to know Magella years ago when we had the fascinating task of writing the conflict of interest policy for this organization, which you can imagine was thrilling and exciting. But we are indeed fortunate to have her at the helm this year. Magella is a no-nonsense person in the truest sense of the word. She doesn't tolerate drama or self-promoting agendas in any form. She works incredibly hard for the right causes and for the right reasons, never looking for fanfare or recognition. Magella leads more through action than words, but when she speaks, she has something thoughtful and important to say. She does everything with a tireless and unending sense of humor and common sense. Magella is mentioned to many people in the room, either clinically or in the academic careers of both. I think it also has to be said that Magella established herself as a leader in this association at a time when you could count the number of women at this meeting on one hand. Her leadership and presence have paved the way forward for many and made all of us better. I've truly been honored to have worked with her this year through our work through the AHPBA and I've been inspired by her wisdom and leadership. Thank you, Magella, on a personal level. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, I have the distinct pleasure and honor of introducing the president of the AHPBA, Magella Doyle. You can have it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sean Cleary, for that really fabulous introduction. As Sean mentioned, we bonded over the Conflict of Interest Committee, and we really have never looked back. He's been a great colleague to work with and a great president-elect, and I have no concerns handing over the gavel to him. I'm excited to see what he does next year. So when I stepped off the plane in St. Louis in 2005 from Ireland, I could never have imagined that I could be standing here before you today as the president of this society. My memories of the AHPBA Society go back to 2004 with a serendipitous meeting with Dr. Chapman, actually at the AHPBA in DC, that was followed by a fantastic offer to undertake fellowship at Washington University. My life pivoted in a new direction. Thus, with a deep desire to learn and grow in my field, I decided to embark on a new adventure and come to the US to further my training. And while I had only been planning to be in the US for 1 year, here I am 18 years later, loving where my journey has taken me. As I look across the room, I see the faces of so many friends and colleagues, reminding me of so many memories from past meetings. It is really, truly an honor to be here with you today. For all of the younger members and the newer members, I want you to know this is an incredibly friendly society. It's a large society. We're growing and there's so many people here. we and the leadership and the senior surgeons, everybody wants to get to know the junior surgeons. So please come up to us, introduce yourselves and tell us who you are and what you're doing. I want the junior folks here to have the same experience as I did in the last 18 years, getting to know so many people in this great society. Now, there are many reasons why, I have no disclosures, except number one, I'm actually a really shy person that nobody believes, and I've worked very hard to try to overcome that. And second of all, I really don't like public speaking, but here I am nonetheless. There are many reasons why I stayed in the US, but there were some people who were instrumental in the process. Will Chapman, who was well known to this crowd, past president from 10 years ago. He's the person I torture for advice on cases, the person I call for help in the operating room, an incredible mentor, but more so a great friend. I would also like to thank Jerry McEntee, who built the liver transplant program in Ireland. He is a renowned HPB surgeon, and in addition to that, he is a national hero in Gaelic football, actually, Sean, rather than rugby. He'll probably come and hit you at the next meeting. He taught me so much about surgery and life as his resident in Ireland, and I'm really eternally grateful for his friendship. Dr. Tim Eberline, who was already mentioned this morning, our past chair and a true giant in surgery, who has granted me so many opportunities during my career thus far. David Lenihan, who I have never truly seen in a bad mood. The man, he's incredible. We take a leaf out of his book. Anybody who doesn't know him, you just have to talk to him and he will uplift your mood. He left us at WashU to be the chair at Rochester in New York, but we have remained good friends. And I can tell you at any given year, David is in my family home in Ireland more frequently than I am. And this is right where he was when I arrived home in the summer last year, sitting on my balcony chatting with my parents. No lie. Now, Dr. Stephen Strasberg, AHPBA president from 20 years ago, who of course is no stranger to all of you and truly a legend in the field. I learned so much working with him as a fellow. And Dr. Jeff Lowell, who no longer works at WashU because he went to work at the government. We're not sure quite what he does, but he is an amazing colleague and friend, and was just an outstanding partner over the years that we worked together. He taught me how to do a pediatric liver transplant for anybody who does that silly job, Kelly Collins. It's a really challenging area, and I thank him for his tutelage of me. And then Dr. Ralph Dacey, who I have come to know in the last few years. He's a neighbor and the former chair of neurosurgery at Washington University. And I thank him for his counsel and advice and friendship over the last few years. Now, I am incredibly lucky to work with this great group of people. Dr. Jason Wellen, Dr. Ying Lin, and Dr. Surendra Shenoy, who do mostly transplant and don't generally attend this meeting. Dr. Jen Yu, our most recent addition. And I need to special mention Dr. Adil Khan and Miranda Sher. Miranda's basically runs our operating room, runs our lives in the operating room, and also manages our whole robotic program from the RNFA side. And together with Adil, they made the impossible possible and actually taught me how to use a robot, which is just amazing. And now I actually love it. So, there you go. Don't be afraid to learn anything as you go through your training. It really is remarkable how many things I learned, far more actually than I learned in fellowship. And then we have three amazing fellows. Our first year fellow, Jesse Davidson, who's outstanding, and Greg Martins and Darren Cullinan, who are pictured here in the corner, signing their contract last week as we're keeping them on, and we're so excited to have them join our faculty. Of course, I also get to work with these amazing people, Dr. Bill Hawkins, Ryan Fields, Dominic Sanford, Chet Hamill, and the newest addition to the HPB group, Tash Lee. We are so incredibly lucky at WashU to have a great working relationship with our HPB colleagues. We have joint conferences, fellow swaps, and we work together closely. Now, fellows. I love having fellows. They are the greatest asset to any program. They are the future, and we are so proud of what they do and what they all have become. They teach us so much, both in fellowship and beyond. We even have instruments named after some of our fellows. For example, the Leanne, which is named after Leanne Daggerford. It's one of the Thompson blades. We use it all the time, and it's known in every operating room in WashU as the Leanne. Here she is pictured here with her little baby Jackson and her husband. Now, Dr. Erin Maynard and Kelly Collins also deserve special mention. They are also past fellows of ours, and they are just amazing. They answer the phone, whether I call them at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're always there for me, especially when I'm struggling in the operating room. And Alex Kemper, who's pictured here with her husband, is my right hand in the office. She keeps me in line and is just an amazing friend and colleague. Now, Sean showed this picture a little bit earlier, and this picture is from about 10 years ago. Now, it doesn't show all of the women in the society at that time, but it's not too far off. What's really incredible, and I am so delighted to show you this picture from last night, and clearly we have a ways to go given the number of people in the room, but we are, once were few, and now we are certainly many. I also need to thank my colleagues, Dr. Sean Cleary, Dr. Mariana Jimenez, and Dr. Rohan Jayaraja, who have been an incredible support this year. I couldn't have asked for a better officer team. And of course, Dr. Mike Giandelica, who's past president, who we worked closely with over the last few years. And the Executive Council for all the work that you do. We are a working society. And while I'm not going to go through every committee in detail because there are too many, I would like to thank everybody for their incredible efforts. There is so much great work being done by our membership for the society. I will highlight a few. Firstly, Dr. Clark and her committee have done a mammoth amount of work to make the AHPBA more inclusive. I'll come back to LP in a minute. To make the AHPBA a more inclusive society. They provide sold out CV workshops, set up a speakers bureau. So please make sure you sign up. We want to know who the speakers are. We want to know what you want to talk about. This is so helpful when we're trying to organize meetings and get speakers. And we want you to be recognized. And most importantly, they performed a climate survey to better understand the makeup of our membership and identify opportunities for improvement. Now, I want to just go back here for 1 second because this meeting, as you all know, would not happen without the incredible support of this amazing organization, LP. I'm very cross with Jill and Margie because they were supposed to give me a picture of the two of them, and I don't have it. So I will give out to you later, which is an Irish way of saying I'm very cross. But they are incredible. I have known Jill and Margie for a long time through societies before the AHPBA, and of course Margie's sister Noni, who was mentioned this morning. And we are just so lucky to have this leadership. So please, anybody who doesn't know them, go up and introduce yourself to them. They out there at the desk, they want to know everybody. They want to know the membership. They are an incredible asset to our society. Now, I did have the most incredible hour doing a podcast interview with the leadership of the junior surgeons. They are absolutely outstanding. And again, I was quite nervous being interviewed for a podcast, but actually we had a great chat, although I haven't heard the podcast yet, so I don't know how it's turned out. But it's amazing what they've done with all these podcasts. It's really an enormous lift. I would also like to congratulate our graduates who we saw receiving their graduate certification this morning. And this is a 2-year leadership program set up by past President Dr. Tim Pollock. And for anyone who's interested, I think the deadline is actually today. So please make sure you get your applications in on time if you're interested in going forward with this. Now, training our surgeons of the future is one of the most important things we do. We heard a great talk and discussion on this morning. In a much needed deep dive into our HPB fellowship training process, Doctors El Saidi and Visser, together with this group, which didn't show up, with a group that was put together, did an in-depth SWOT analysis by interviewing past leadership program directors, and trainees. Their findings were, oh, this is the group here. The findings were published in HPB, as was mentioned this morning. And I'm not going to say anything more, but I would really, really value everybody's input on Saturday afternoon at this session. This is going to be a really good session. We really want to have the future HPB surgeons getting the state-of-the-art training that sets them apart from everybody else. We want to be training the right number of people so that they get the jobs that they're interested in doing. So please join in the discussion. I think it's going to be a very robust discussion. Now, I know many of us work with benign disease, but I really feel that cancer care is in the core of HPB surgery. And no doubt the fight against cancer is a multidisciplinary effort with many different approaches and many different delivery systems. Transplant oncology is a very exciting and growing field. We are all aware of the great success with transplantation for early stage HCC, initially published by Mazzaferro in 1996, which began a journey for transplantation for HCC. This was followed closely by the Mayo Clinic developing a very successful protocol for the treatment of hilar cholangiocarcinoma. Now, transplantation can really extend the resection margin potential because we are removing the whole liver. This was also discussed this morning. Resection is in the eye of the beholder, I agree, and it is very important that patients get referred to the right place if there's any question about resection, to make sure that resection is not possible before we consider any of these alternative treatments. Liver transplant, because of the R0 resection potential, was originally conceived as the ideal therapy for cancer. So for this reason, as we move forward, we have to remember to be careful that the decision to transplant must go well beyond the technical aspects of what we do. And we must strive to understand the biology of the disease so that we can make good decisions and really define where transplant fits in the algorithm of cancer treatment. When considering transplantation for new and undefined indications like intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma and colorectal metastases and advanced HCC, we have to consider these basic principles. Based on what's worked in the past, and some of these ideas have come from a great review by Gonzalez Aposocian and Mazzaferro and some other colleagues. But the basic principles, in my view, are: ideally, we want to see a sustained and significant response to therapy. Response to therapy, in my view, is one of the keys to success. Additionally, we have to be vigilant to eliminate extrahepatic disease. We really don't have the right tools at the moment. Patients who recur are patients who have metastatic disease. We're just not seeing it. And so we have to be vigilant to rule this out. Transplantation for newer indications should be performed in the setting of a clinical trial or registry with clear inclusion and exclusion criteria. When it comes to the management of these patients, we need to consider the balance between immunosuppression and tumor recurrence in post-transplant cancer patients. In addition, surgical technique, mobilization, graft injury, and inflammation in the recipient may need to be studied. We do not understand what this may do after transplant and how these inflammatory changes may affect recurrence. We must also ensure a fair and balanced organ allocation, and we must carefully consider adding new indications to an already burdened waiting list. Marginal or discarded organs must be used with care, and we must avoid inadvertently coercing patients who may feel like there are no other options for treatment. Living donor use for this indication must have dual equipoise, and Dr. Liz Pomfret is going to talk more about this on Saturday, so I encourage anybody interested in this field to listen to her talk on Saturday. Now, great advances have already been made in the field, and while it's a very exciting time in oncology, it's also difficult as we have our own biases. And so in addition to progress, there can also be conflict. How do we do this and get productive as a group? Transplantation for cancer is rising. It may be as high as 30 to 50% in many centers. So we, as the AHPBA membership, have a unique opportunity, given our diverse backgrounds in surgical oncology, HPB, and transplant, to harness our expertise to guide the field in the right direction. There are so many unanswered questions, but we have to start somewhere, perhaps simply to get these answers in a stepwise fashion. And again, this is from the same review from Gonzalo that I have sort of adapted it from, but it's really to think about what transplant oncology could be. A framework to collaborate with other disciplines, a data collection tool. We need to create national and international registries. Since the numbers to be transplanted will be small, we need to work in partnership amongst centers to power studies accurately. While some of these efforts have been started by Talia Baker and Roberta Hernandez in the ASTS, we need to do more. We need repositories for tissue. After transplant, there's an abundance of tissue available for studies. This can't be wasted. We must develop predictive models using AI, molecular patterns, and other techniques to enable better selection of patients. We must optimize the use of ctDNA and other newer technologies to determine and rule out metastatic disease. What oncology should not be, it should not be a palliative procedure, i.e. we don't go to transplant when all other therapies have failed. We must determine what the minimal acceptable survival benefit should be, whether that's 30, 40, 50, 60%. I don't know the answer, but we have to be in agreement and we have to consider this. Liver transplant should be considered as part of the algorithm for treatment as an elective anti-cancer therapy, but only when agreed upon transplant eligibility criteria are met. Liver transplant should not be justified for any patient. Age and comorbidities and frailty must be considered. Transplantation is a big operation. Not everybody can withstand it. Finally, we must stick to our criteria. We must take care not to overextend. A compassion to help a few patients or grow the numbers in the short term will really hurt the whole endeavor. So how do we get to success? To this end, we have formed a task force from our membership with the intention to combine efforts with the ASTS. We would like to plan separate forums on the following cancers that do not have a standardized pathway to transplant: colorectal metastases, intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, advanced HCC, and neuroendocrine cancer. And we would like to plan to do this over the next 2 years by collaborating with ASTS and their task force, along with medical oncology, hepatology, radiation oncology, and all of the other relevant patient advocacy groups. We would plan to develop strategies to help answer the unanswered questions. And we hope to have our first meeting in the fall at the American College of Surgeons as a side operation. So more details to come on that, and keep an eye on your emails for invitations and details. Now, for the final portion of this talk, I'm going to switch gears somewhat and talk about one other area that I feel very strongly. As my colleague, Dr. Jeff Lowell used to say, we are in the NFL of surgery, performing high-stakes operations. Despite the amazing work you all do and every day, and I know we'll see many of those great results presented here at this meeting over the next few days, we all know the operations that we're performing come with a high rate of complications. This paper from Tim Pollock lays it out. GI, surgical oncology, surgery, 20 to 40% had a complication, and 1 to 4% mortality. Like I said, this is high stakes surgery. Now, it's also nothing new to tell you that institutions pile onto that additional pressures. The hospitals are under pressure to have excellent excellence in quality and care, and are compared to each other through Vizient data. In addition, these institutions are vying for the top of the honor roll, measured on survival, patient safety, other care-related indicators, and expert opinion. We know a lot of this burden falls to the surgical teams. In addition, now there are websites that take Medicare data and analyze us and grade us. For example, this ProPublica Surgeon Scorecard provides a quality of care metric based on an analysis of nearly 17,000 surgeons performing one of 8 commonly elective procedures in Medicare, including gallbladders. Despite studies showing that these scorecards sites are inaccurate, excluding the majority of cases, 82% of cases excluded, and missing the majority of postoperative complications, they still exist. There is poor correlation with well-established outcomes. The fact is that we don't have robust, accurate data, we don't have relevant outcome measures, and we don't know how to communicate effectively to consumers, and they don't know how to interpret the data. I'm sure many of us are familiar with the Press Ganey report card that we receive in our email inbox. Press Ganey, for those of you who don't know, is a healthcare company known for developing and distributing patient satisfaction surveys. They have the most widely used outpatient satisfaction survey in the United States. Many of the factors we are judged on through these surveys are out of our control. They're based on staff and conditions, but it all reflects on us. More recently, patient-reported outcomes have become popular. This report, for example, looks at across 28 websites. There were over 8,000 quantitative reviews for the 600 sampled patients. Patient-reported outcomes will continue to be demanded, much like restaurants' reviews. But how this is done currently is extremely haphazard. We do have opportunity here, as most of this reporting is currently being done with poor methodology and administrative data. We need more relevant, patient-centered, and long-term outcomes. We need robust methodologies to compare outcomes and performance, but that's another talk. Now, what really differentiates us from our medical colleagues is that we operate on people. Given the uniqueness of surgery, quality is key. And while the airline industry has benefited from black box technology, the operating room can often be a quagmire with no feedback on incidents that happen beyond human recall. Given the huge need and interest in developing strategies for safety, black box technology has been suggested for the operating room and has been used in Stanford in Canada, which in some instances may actually be very helpful. But it's certainly a huge additional pressure to feel like you're going to have eyes and ears on you all the time in the operating room. Now, let's not forget that some of the patients we manage are extremely complex, and even deciding what kind of operation that is required takes a clear head and much thought. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but add a pandemic on top of all of these other incredible stressors. And oh, by the way, you're trying to get your research going, say yes to everybody, maybe find time to meet somebody or have a family, a social life, whatever. And then you have a complication, or you make a mistake, or you have a catastrophic outcome. We are told to hold our emotions internally, to suck it up and to get on with it. We are taught not to display our vulnerability and always put on a brave face. Yet inside, we may be feeling alone and unsupported. We may fear media exposure or litigation, and all of this takes its toll on us. Now, moral injury is a concept that I had little knowledge of until Dr. Sunil Geevarghese from Vanderbilt and Dr. Liz Pomfret from Colorado started talking about it and writing about it in reference to transplant surgeons. Moral injury occurs when we feel we have failed our patients. In other words, moral injury is what may happen to surgeons when patients undergo complications, whether this is due to a mistake or an error that we make, or a complication that occurs despite providing the best standard of care. In aggregate, these events can lead to a deep sense of loss and inadequacy. Doctors Liu and Moulter and colleagues describe moral injury as happening in 4 stages: the kick, the fall, the recovery, and the long-term impact. They explored surgeon reactions to adverse events and the impact on judgment and decision-making using a constructive, grounded theory approach with surgeon interviews. They described the initial phase, the kick, involving feelings of failure. Am I good enough? Experienced with a significant physiologic response. This was shortly followed by a second phase, the fall, during which the surgeon experienced a sense of chaos and assessed the extent of his or her contribution to the event. During the third phase, the surgeon reflected on the adverse event. What can I learn? And experienced a sense of moving on. And in the fourth phase, the surgeon experienced the prolonged and cumulative effects of these reactions on his or her own personal and professional identities. I remember the first time I lost a patient in the operating room. That gut-wrenching feeling, complete helplessness, barely able to hold my emotions together. I had to tell the family. I still remember to this day being in the patient's family room, looking at their faces. My friend and colleague, Jeff Lowell, at my side, he took over. He talked to the family and he helped me through. And I am forever grateful to him for that. Complications can be even more impactful to the junior surgeon. Just as they are getting their long-awaited freedom from residency and fellowship training, the responsibility that they have to take on, that they have been protected from, becomes all too real. No counseling or preparation can prepare a junior attending for these or any complications, especially when you're starting out in a new hospital and a new job. Nobody knows who you are, how well trained you are, and you're trying to prove yourself. I remember the first complication I had as a junior attending, and I was working in the place I had trained. I had a bile leak in a patient who had a hole in the cystic duct below where I placed the clip. It was easily fixed by an ERCP, but I felt like a total idiot. I wanted to crawl into a hole, disappear, and then I had to face the stress of presenting at M&M. I was absolutely mortified, and I assumed everyone would think I was a terrible surgeon. Although well-meaning, theoretically, and important from a quality assurance perspective, M&M conferences result in a reliving of the event before the surgeon has fully recovered. It does feel like a judge and jury sometimes, even though it really is not meant to be like that, but that's how we feel when you're the person who is going through the complication. It's a sad but true quote from René Leriche in 1951. Every surgeon carries within themselves a small cemetery where from time to time they go to pray. Hospital employee assistance programs designed for all staff do not engage physicians. Concerns about confidentiality, negative impact on career, and stigma are all barriers. Physicians tend to prefer to seek support from other physicians. So, how, as a society, can we help our membership? A peer support network is a well-established tool that systems can use to support their surgeons in training or practice. Dr. Jo Shapiro and her colleagues established the first major hospital-based unit in the United States, the Center for Professionalism and Peer Support at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. The group provide emotional first aid and mobilize resources to the individual seeking support. They attempt to match peers in specialty, seniority, and personality with great care to avoid matching anyone to whom they report. Given the collegial society we are in AHPBA, I felt that we had a real opportunity to develop a peer support system within the membership. So I got connected to Dr. Shapiro through Dr. Liz Pomfret and Sunil Giverghese. And after a call to the membership, 16 of our members elected to show up for peer support training. This was with a grant from the AHPBA Foundation. We had an incredible call with Dr. Shapiro for a few hours on Zoom. We learned about what not to do and what to do when supporting a colleague. And as I mentioned earlier, this is emotional first aid. We're not counselors. We're not here for the long-term help, but we're here to provide an ear of somebody who totally understands the problem, may not understand what the person is going through, but knows the questions to ask to try to get to the bottom of it. So with that, we have, of course, I've invited Joe Shapiro here to give us the presidential lecture this afternoon. So really, she's outstanding. I want you all to come and listen to this because it's such an important area for yourselves and for your colleagues and for the people you work with, not just within AHPBA, but everywhere. So please come and listen to her talk. And as a result of our training, we are opening up a peer support initiative. It will be available multiple ways to contact by phone or by text and on the newswire. And so I hope that anybody who needs to avail of it will avail of it. And we hope to have another training session in the not too distant future to train another group of members who are interested in going through the training. So thank you, Dr. Shapiro, for coming. We're really looking forward to your talk this afternoon. So to finish, I would like to you to indulge me for a couple of minutes while I talk about the people who are most special in my life. First of all, my parents, who are centered here in the middle. This is a recent picture when we were in Ireland. My siblings, Sarah and Howard, are at either end. And my mom and dad, who are just amazing. They didn't want to make the trip over to the States this year for various different reasons, but I know they're at home on Zoom listening. So hi, everybody. My brother is pictured here with his wife, Rachel, on the left-hand side of the slide, and my sister, Sarah, with her significant other, Hugh, and her little baby, Isabel, who's Rory's first cousin. And the two of them hang out a lot when we go to Ireland. Indina Launahemia is our Mary Poppins. She appeared from Namibia when Rory was 6 months old, and we were struggling. She came. She stayed with us for 5 years. She went to college, and she graduated not too long ago. She did leave us to go and continue her life without us, sadly, but she became part of the family in that 5 years, and we love her dearly. And we're so glad that she's here today and made the trip to Miami. Now, Bob, who was mentioned earlier, is a saint. For any of you that don't know him, Saint Bob. He also knows everything about everything. So if you have any questions about anything mechanical, anything, just ask him. My friend Amy Wellen suggested we should start a website, say goaskbob.com, because he really is remarkable. But more than that, he is an incredible husband and father to these three amazing children. He puts up with my ridiculous lifestyle. I love you dearly, sweetheart, and I'm so grateful to the cosmos and the universe that we met. Now, you see pictured here some of these amazing children. Amanda, what can I say about Amanda? She is outstanding. She is at SMU doing pre-med. She is an incredible student, an incredible human. I am so lucky that when I met Bob, I already had a ready-made family with these two children who entered into my lives. And it has been the most incredible experience over the last 10 years, getting to know them and watching them grow. I can't wait to see what you do, sweetheart. You're incredible. And Ryan, who could not be here because he's doing exams, is playing hockey in Canada. An amazing young man, 22 now, I can't believe it. He's so grown up. He's absolutely wonderful. And I hope in future meetings he'll be here so you can get to meet him. He is incredible and I cannot wait to see what he does with his future either. And last but not least, my little munchkin, Moo. Sorry, Moo. Am I embarrassing you? Yeah, I know. I know. We waited a very long time for you to enter our lives and we all adore you. You're so loved by everybody in Ireland and everybody in America. Everybody who meets you loves you. And you are an incredible, incredible person. I love you so much. And I love coming home every day from work to see your happy face. And I know your brother and sister, Big Sisses and Rhino do too. As soon as they come home, their faces light up. Everybody lights up when they see you, Rory. So with that, I want to thank you for the honor of being your president. I leave you with this Irish saying. It's a very, it's an Irish saying meaning under the shelter of each other, people survive. In other words, together we survive. Ska a héla a bhéireann na Díne. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we're on a break. I know I need one.